You know that feeling when you're standing in your kitchen at 11 o'clock at night, holding a glass of water, and your brain just starts doing math? Not on purpose. You didn't sit down to think about retirement. You were just getting water, but suddenly you're running numbers in your head. The 401k balance, the mortgage, what Social Security actually pays, how many years you might have left to close the gap between where you are and where you thought you'd be by now. And here's the strange part. You know what to do. You've known for years. Save more. Start earlier. Don't touch the account. Compound interest. Time in the market. You could probably give a decent lecture on this stuff yourself. So why does 11 p.m. math still feel terrifying? That's not a knowledge problem. That's something else entirely. If you're somewhere between 35 and 55 right now, you're inside what researchers actually call the retirement preparation phase. And statistically, you are probably carrying a very specific kind of stress. Not panic, not emergency, but this low-frequency hum of awareness that time is passing and the window is getting smaller. You're not alone in that, not even slightly. Fidelity's 2023 Retirement Savings Assessment found that only 43% of Americans are on track to cover even their essential expenses in retirement. Not luxuries, essentials. And most of those people aren't financially reckless. They're not irresponsible. Many of them know exactly what they should be doing. The gap between knowing and doing is one of the most studied phenomena in all of behavioral economics. And what researchers keep finding over and over is that retirement savings behavior isn't primarily a math problem. It's a timing problem. Specifically, it's about 3 distinct moments in a person's financial life where the trajectory of their retirement either bends dramatically upward or quietly, invisibly bends the other way. Most people never recognize these moments when they're in them. They only see them in the rearview mirror, sometimes decades later, when the cost has already compounded against them. That's what this is about, not what to do, why we miss the moments that matter most, and what the science says about how to catch them. Let's start with a researcher named Daniel Kahneman. He won the Nobel Prize in Economics in 2002. Unusual because he's actually a psychologist, not an economist. And the core of his life's work is this. Your brain is running 2 different operating systems at the same time. He calls them System 1 and System 2. System 1 is fast, automatic. It's the part of your brain that catches a ball, reads a face, drives a familiar route, feels an emotion. It operates below conscious thought. It's ancient, it's efficient, and it's running almost all the time. System 2 is slow, deliberate. It's the part that does math, reads contracts, thinks through consequences, weighs options. It takes effort. It requires concentration. And here's the critical thing. System 2 is exhausting to run. Your brain actively tries to limit how much it uses it. Now, here's why this matters for retirement. Every major retirement decision you will ever make, how much to contribute, whether to increase your contribution when you get a raise, whether to roll over an old 401k, whether to rebalance your portfolio, whether to start claiming Social Security at 62 versus 67. Every single one of those decisions requires System 2. Deliberate, effortful, long-term thinking. But System 1 is what shows up in the moment. When a raise hits your bank account, System 1 immediately starts categorizing it as available money. When you see the contribution increase form from HR, System 1 registers it as friction, something complex, something that can wait. When you have the option to stay in your current investment allocation versus change it, System 1 defaults to staying. Always. Because staying feels like doing nothing, and doing nothing feels safe. This is what Richard Thaler, another Nobel laureate, calls status quo bias. The human brain assigns disproportionate weight to the current state of things, not because the current state is better, simply because it's current. Familiarity feels like safety even when it's costing you money. And then there's a third force at work, what behavioral economists call present bias, or hyperbolic discounting. The technical definition is that we place dramatically more psychological weight on costs and rewards that are immediate than on costs and rewards that are distant in time. A simpler way to say it, your brain genuinely experiences $1,000 today as more real than $1,000 a year from now. and far, far more real than $1,000 in retirement. Future money doesn't feel like your money. It feels abstract. It feels like a number in a spreadsheet rather than a physical reality you'll have to live inside. Dan Ariely, the behavioral economist at Duke, ran a study where he asked people to imagine their own retirement. Most people visualize it vaguely, some blend of travel and leisure and not having a boss. When he had participants interact with age-progressed images of themselves, photos that showed them at 70, at 75, at 80, their willingness to save for retirement increased significantly. Not because the math changed, because the future self became real. That's the enemy you're working against. Not laziness, not stupidity. A brain that is exquisitely designed to protect you from immediate threats and immediate discomfort. And that treats the distant future like it belongs to a stranger. The 3 moments that change retirement? They're the 3 moments when your future self most needed your present self to show up, and your brain, running its ancient programming, was looking the other way. Let me make this concrete, because abstract behavioral science only becomes useful when you can see it happening to a real person making a real decision. Meet a person we'll call Michael. He's 41. He works in mid-level management at a manufacturing company in Ohio. He's been there 14 years. He has a 401k through his employer with a 4% match. For the last 9 years, he has contributed exactly 4% of his salary, the amount required to get the full match. Not 4.1%, not 5%, exactly 4%. Is Michael irresponsible? No. He set up that 4% contribution on his first day of work. He did what the HR person recommended. He's been consistent. He never touched the account. By most social measures, Michael is a responsible retirement saver. But here's the problem. At Michael's income level, let's say $78,000 per year, the difference between contributing 4% and contributing 10% is roughly $4,680 per year out of pocket. That sounds significant. And System 1 registers it as significant, as money leaving your hands, as sacrifice, as less. So Michael has never increased it. The form was always there. The option was always available. He always meant to revisit it. He's now 41. He hasn't revisited it in 9 years. Here's what that actually cost him. If Michael had increased his contribution from 4% to 10% when he was 32, when he first had a real salary, and if we assume a reasonable average market return of 7% annually, by 65, he would have approximately $340,000 more in his retirement account than he will have on his current path. $340,000. Not because he didn't care, not because he didn't know, because System 1 looked at a form on a screen and said, "This can wait." And System 2 never got called in to do the math. Now let's run the second scenario. Same Michael, same income, same job. But at 32, instead of defaulting to 4%, he was automatically enrolled at 6% and automatically escalated by 1% each year. His salary increased. A behavioral design system called Save More Tomorrow, developed by Richard Thaler and Shlomo Benartzi. The Save More Tomorrow program leverages a specific quirk in human psychology. We are much more willing to commit future resources than present ones. Agreeing to contribute more from a raise that hasn't happened yet doesn't feel like sacrifice. The money doesn't feel real yet, so giving some of it away feels costless. In this second scenario, by the time Michael is 41, he's contributing 12% of his salary without ever having made a painful decision. His lifestyle was never disrupted. His take-home pay adjusted gradually, not suddenly. And his retirement account is on a completely different trajectory. Same person, same brain, different moment, massively different outcome. The 3 moments I'm going to show you work exactly like this. They don't require a new personality. They don't require iron discipline. They require catching the moment when it's happening, which your brain, left on its own, is designed to miss. The 3 moments are not random. They follow a pattern. Each one arrives at a point when something in your life is already changing, and that change creates a window, usually brief, where your default settings are temporarily unlocked, where the status quo is already in motion, where a new default could be set with far less friction than it would take at any other time. Miss the window, and the new default becomes the old one. The moment closes, the trajectory locks. Moment 1, the first real paycheck. This one sounds obvious. It isn't. The reason it's powerful isn't the amount of money involved. At this stage in life, the actual dollar contributions are the smallest they'll ever be. The power is entirely in time. A dollar invested at 32 has 33 years to compound before a traditional retirement age of 65. A dollar invested at 42 has 23 years. That difference isn't 10 years. Because of compound growth, it's actually a difference of roughly 100% in end value. The dollar invested at 32 is worth approximately twice as much at retirement as the dollar invested at 42. At 52, that same dollar is worth less than 25% of what the 32-year-old dollar becomes. But here's what happens psychologically at the first real paycheck. Your spending identity hasn't formed yet. You don't have a lifestyle you're protecting. You haven't decided what your car should be, what your apartment should feel like, what your vacation should cost. This is the only moment in your financial life when you can set a high savings rate before your lifestyle expectations calcify around a lower one. Lifestyle inflation is one of the most powerful and least discussed forces in personal finance. Every time your income increases and your spending increases proportionally, you have successfully protected your present self at the direct expense of your future self. The first paycheck moment is the one time you can get ahead of lifestyle inflation before it starts. Most people don't. Not because they don't want to, because no one told them this was the moment. Moment 2, the income inflection. At some point, usually in the 40s, sometimes the late 30s, something shifts. A promotion, a career change, a business that starts working, a spouse who re-enters the workforce. Income jumps. Maybe it jumps a lot. And in that moment, before lifestyle expands to consume the new income, there is a window, typically 60 to 90 days, where additional saving feels painless because you're comparing it to what you had before, not to what you could have. Researchers call this hedonic adaptation. We adapt to new income levels with remarkable speed. A raise that felt life-changing in April feels normal by October. The surplus disappears into lifestyle. Better restaurants, the car upgrade, the vacation that seemed out of reach 6 months ago. None of that is wrong, but it is expensive, and it happens automatically. The income inflection moment is when the math is most in your favor. You have more runway than you did at your first paycheck, but you have dramatically more fuel. And because your lifestyle hasn't expanded yet, every dollar redirected toward retirement is a dollar your nervous system doesn't miss. Moment 3, the event that reorganizes everything. This one is the hardest to talk about because it usually arrives with pain attached to it. Divorce, death of a parent, a health scare, a layoff, a child leaving home. These are the events that force a full accounting, that make you sit down and actually look at the numbers, actually recalculate what you have and what you need and what the gap is between them. These moments are emotionally brutal, and yet they are also, statistically, the moments when the most significant positive financial decisions get made. Not in spite of the difficulty, because of it. Because these events temporarily override the status quo bias. They force System 2 online. They make the future self feel real and urgent in a way that a form from HR never does. The research on this is striking. Studies on retirement savings behavior consistently show that major life disruptions, even painful ones, are associated with significant savings rate increases in the 12 months that follow. Not because people suddenly become disciplined, because the event stripped away the illusion that there's more time than there is. The tragedy is that most people let this window close without acting. The emotion fades, the urgency dissolves, the future self retreats back into abstraction, and the moment, the one moment that was actually powerful enough to override the brain's default, passes unused. I want to give you something you can actually use, not a list of tips. A framework, one that works with your brain's actual operating system instead of against it. I call it the moment capture system. 3 tools, one for each of the 3 moments. Tool 1, the contribution floor protocol, for the first real paycheck moment. The principle here is simple. Set a floor, not a target. Most financial advice tells you to save a percentage, 10%, 15%, whatever the number is. The problem with a target is that it feels like a ceiling. You hit it, you stop, you feel done. A floor works differently. A floor is the minimum. It's the non-negotiable baseline below which you will never fall. Here's how to set it. When you start a new job, Or if you're past that right now, open your retirement account contribution settings. Set your contribution rate to at least 1% above the employer match. If the match is 4%, set it to 5%. This sounds trivially small. It is not. The floor has two jobs. First, it captures slightly more than the default. Second, it creates a psychological anchor. You are now someone who contributes above the match. That identity is surprisingly durable. Then, activate automatic escalation if your plan offers it. If it doesn't, put a recurring calendar reminder on the 1st of every January that says one thing: increase contribution by 1%. 1% per year. At the end of 10 years, you're contributing 10% more than you are today. Not all at once, not painfully, gradually, the way your brain can accept. Tool 2, the raise lock. For the income inflection moment. This one has to be done fast. Within 30 days of any meaningful income increase, direct a minimum of 50% of the net increase in take-home pay toward retirement or other investment vehicles. Not savings. Investment. Savings accounts lose value to inflation. This needs to be going somewhere with growth potential. The 50% rule is a negotiation. You're not telling yourself you can't have any of the raise. You're splitting it. Half to your future self, half to your present self. Psychologically, this is far more sustainable than telling yourself to save the whole thing, which almost no one actually does. The mechanism matters as much as the intention. Don't try to manually transfer this money. Change the direct deposit allocation before the first paycheck at the new rate arrives. If the money never appears in your checking account, you cannot spend it. This is the single most powerful behavioral design principle in personal finance. Make the right behavior automatic and the wrong behavior inconvenient. If your payroll system doesn't allow split direct deposit, set up an automatic transfer for the day after payday, not a week after. The day after. Studies on automatic savings show that delay dramatically increases the rate of cancellation. 24 hours after payday, the right behavior happens. Done. Tool 3, the 90-day review. For the event that reorganizes everything when a major life event hits, your instinct is going to be to stabilize, to get through it, to handle the immediate logistics. That's right, do that first, but set a calendar appointment within the first week of the event, before the chaos fully sets in. For 90 days out, the appointment is called one thing: full financial review. 1 hour. A pen, a notebook, and access to all of your accounts. At that review, you answer 4 questions only. What is my current retirement balance? At my current savings rate, what will that balance be at 65? What will I actually need at 65 to live the way I want to live? And what is the one change, the single, specific, executable change I will make in the next 30 days to close some portion of that gap? One change, not a plan, not a resolution. One change, because one change executed beats a perfect plan abandoned every single time. The science behind this is from implementation intention research, work pioneered by psychologist Peter Gollwitzer. His studies consistently show that when people plan not just what they will do, but exactly when and where they will do it, follow-through rates increase by 200% to 300%. The 90-day review is an implementation intention for your future self. You're not hoping you'll get around to it. You're telling your brain, this day, this time, this conversation with myself. And here's the thing about the 90-day window specifically. Research on behavior change shows that the period immediately following a major life disruption is a genuine psychological opening, what scientists call a fresh start effect. It doesn't last indefinitely. By 120 days, the brain has largely returned to its established patterns. By 90 days, you're at the edge of the window. Act inside it, and you're leveraging one of the most powerful moments your brain will offer you. Miss it, and you're waiting for the next disruption to open the door again. The moment capture system isn't about becoming a different person. It's about building a structure that catches the moments your brain was designed to miss and turns them into the inflection points they actually are. Here's the thing about those 3 moments. They aren't waiting for you at some specific age. They're not marked on a calendar. They arrive inside ordinary days. The day you get the offer letter, the day the raise hits, the day you drive home from a funeral, and the world looks different than it did that morning. Your brain, doing exactly what it was built to do, will try to absorb those moments into the routine. Will file them under think about later. will remind you that there's always next year. You are not broken for having a brain that works this way. Every person reading this has the same brain. Every Nobel Prize winner who studied this problem built their career on the fact that this is universal human experience, not individual weakness. But knowledge, as you already know, is not enough on its own. Structure is what knowledge needs to become action. If something in this resonated, if you've been in that kitchen at 11 p.m. running the math, this channel exists for exactly that person. Every video here is about the same thing: why the gap between knowing and doing exists, and what the science says about closing it. Subscribe if that's a conversation worth continuing.